If a stranger ever knocks on your window at 2 a.m. in the morning and offers you the job of your life, do not answer. Do not roll down that glass. Do not even breathe too loud, because some jobs are not meant for the living. Obinna did not know this, and now nobody knows exactly where Obinna is. Obinna was not a bad man. He was a hard-working man, a proud man, a man who believed that if you put your hands to work every single day, God would not let you suffer. But my people, life does not always reward a good heart. Sometimes the rain falls hardest on the person who deserves sunshine the most. Obinna had been driving a commercial bus for 11 years. 11 years of waking before the sun, 11 years of breathing, exhaust, fumes, and fighting traffic. 11 years of carrying strangers from one place to another. He knew every pothole on every major road. He knew which motor park at Barros would collect double. He knew which police checkpoints were the most dangerous at night. He knew this city the way a man knows his own face in a mirror. He had given this city everything, and the city had slowly taken everything back. It started when the government changed the transport routes. Overnight, the road Obinna had driven for 7 years was now restricted. His regular passengers dried up like a river in Harmattan. Then his bus, his beautiful yellow and black van that he had saved 4 years to buy, began to develop problems. First the gear, then the radiator, then the entire engine coughed and died on the expressway one hot Wednesday afternoon. Repairs cost him everything he had saved. Still, it was not enough. The mechanic said the engine needed to be changed completely. 350,000 naira. Obinna sat beside his broken bus on the side of the road that Wednesday evening, and he wept. A grown man, a father of 3. He wept right there in the open. He had a wife, Chisom. He had 3 children. His oldest son, Emeka, who was preparing for his WAEC exams, his daughter, Sochi, who was 8 and loved to sing in the church choir, and the baby, Ngozi, who was barely 2 years old and still did not fully understand why daddy came home tired and sad every night. For 2 months, Obinna borrowed from every relative he had. He sold the small generator in his house. He sold Chisom's jewelry, the ones she had received as bridal gifts, the gold earrings her mother gave her on their wedding day. Chisom never complained, not once. She simply removed them from her ears, placed them in his palm, and said, God will replace them with better ones. That woman's faith was stronger than iron. But even iron bends under enough heat. The landlord had been patient for 3 months, but patience has an expiry date. He came on a Saturday morning, banging the door like he was trying to break it down. Obinna, open this door. I am not a charity organization. This is not a church. Pay my money or carry your family and go. The children heard everything. Little Sochi started to cry. Baby Ngozi, confused by the noise, began to cry too. Emeka, the oldest, stood by the doorway, looking at his father with eyes that broke Obinna's soul. Eyes that were no longer the eyes of a child. Eyes that had learned too soon what hardship looked like. That night, Obinna could not sleep. He sat outside on the small concrete step in front of the house, staring at the empty road. The neighborhood was quiet. Everyone had gone to bed. The street light on the corner was flickering. Like it too was tired of working. Obinna bowed his head and prayed the quiet prayer of a desperate man. God, I am not asking for plenty. Just enough to hold my family together. Please. That was when he heard it. The slow sound of a vehicle. Unusual, because at this time of night, this street was always completely empty. He looked up. A long black car was moving down the road with no headlights on. No headlights. Just gliding through the darkness like a shadow pretending to be a car. It stopped directly in front of him. The window rolled down. Obinna could not see inside properly. The interior of the car was dark, but he could make out the shape of someone sitting in the back. A woman. She looked old, very, very old. She wore a white head tie, wrapped so high and so perfectly that it looked carved out of stone. Her face was thin like a skull, wrapped in dry skin. But her eyes were bright, too bright, like two small lamps burning behind hollow sockets. "You are the driver," she said. It was not a question. Her voice sounded like dry sand being poured slowly into an empty tin cup. Obinna stood up slowly. "Good evening, Ma. Can I help you?" The old woman reached one bony hand out of the window. In her hand was a thick envelope. Even from where he stood, Obinna could see it was money. A lot of money. "I need a driver. One night. Before morning comes, you will drive a bus. My bus. I will pay you 500,000 naira. My people. 500,000 naira. In one night." Obinna's hands began to shake. He swallowed. "What kind of bus, Ma? And where are we going?" The old woman smiled. And something about that smile made the back of Obinna's neck grow cold. "You will drive passengers to where they need to go. That is all. You are a driver. Driving is what you know." She extended the envelope further. "Half now. Half when you return the bus." Obinna looked at the money. He thought about Chisom's gold earrings sitting in someone else's shop. He thought about Emeka's waist registration that had not been paid. He thought about the landlord's voice. "I accept," he said. The old woman nodded. She told him 3 rules. Rule 1. The bus must begin moving at exactly 2 a.m. Not a second before, not a second after. The passengers would board themselves. He was only to drive. Rule 2. No matter what he heard, no matter what was said to him, he must not respond. His mouth must remain shut for the entire journey. Not one word. Not even a cough. Rule 3. And she leaned forward when she said this one, close enough that Obinna could smell something on her breath that he could not name. Something old and cold and wrong. Whatever you do, whatever happens inside that bus, you must not stop the engine. You must keep driving until you reach the final stop. If the engine dies before the final stop, you will not be able to start it again, and you will be trapped with them. Trapped with them. Obinna's stomach clenched. "Trapped with who, Ma?" he asked. "Who are the passengers?" The old woman's bright eyes held his for a long moment. Then she simply said, "Drive well." And the window rolled back up. The black car moved away. It turned the corner at the end of the road and was gone. Obinna looked down at the envelope in his hand. He opened it. New, crisp notes. Counted correctly. 250,000 naira. Obinna went back inside. He did not wake Chisom. He placed 100,000 naira under her pillow. Enough for the landlord. Enough for food. Enough for Emeka's WAEC. He wrote a short note. "Back before sunrise, God is working. Do not worry." He dressed quietly in the dark. He kissed each of his children on the forehead. Sochi stirred in her sleeps and mumbled something. Baby Ngozi turned over. Emeka's breathing was deep and steady. Obinna stood at the door for one moment. Just one moment. looking at his family in the dark. Then he stepped out into the night. The old woman had told him the bus was parked at the end of the long service road behind the old stadium, 20 minutes walk from his house. Obinna walked quickly. The streets were empty and very quiet. He passed a mama put spot that was closed and dark. He passed a mechanic workshop with 2 cars abandoned outside. He passed a church whose gate was chained with heavy padlock. The whole city felt like a place that had been vacated in a hurry. Then he turned the corner behind the old stadium and he saw the bus. It was enormous, far bigger than any commercial bus he had ever driven. It was painted completely white, not the kind of white that is bright and clean, but the kind of white that used to be something else and has slowly faded over many years. White like old hospital walls, white like funeral cloth. The windows were all closed. The bus was running. He could hear the low rumble of the engine, but there was no driver inside. Obinna walked up to the door. It was already open. He climbed up the steps and settled into the driver's seat. The interior was large. There were rows and rows of seats, maybe 50 seats in total. Every seat was covered in white fabric. At the front of the bus, directly above the steering wheel, was a large digital clock mounted to the dashboard, glowing in pale green numbers. 1:41 a.m. 19 minutes. He had 19 minutes before he needed to begin moving. Obinna settled into the seat. It was wide and leather and strangely comfortable. He tested the steering wheel. He tapped the brakes. He pressed the accelerator lightly and heard the engine respond. He was a driver. This was what he knew. He could do this. He sat and watched the clock. 1:43, 1:44, 1:45. The night was very still. Through the windscreen, he could see the dark road stretching out ahead, framed by tall trees whose tops he could not see. 1:50 a.m. It was then that Obinna noticed something. The temperature inside the bus was dropping rapidly. There was no air conditioning running, yet the air was growing cold, not just cool, cold. The kind of cold that settles in your bones. The kind of cold that has no natural explanation. He rubbed his arms. He watched the clock, 1:55 a.m. And then Obinna heard a sound. A sound that should not have been possible, because when he had boarded this bus, he had confirmed with his own eyes that every single seat was empty. It was the sound of someone sitting down. The slow creak of a seat accepting weight. Behind him, Obinna's hands locked onto the steering wheel. He did not turn around. He stared at the clock. 1:56. Another creak, another seat, then another and another. The sounds were spreading through the bus behind him, row by row, seat by seat, the quiet, methodical sound of passengers boarding. But there had been no door opening. There had been no footsteps on the steps. There had been no sound of anyone approaching the bus from outside. They were simply appearing. The cold deepened further. Obinna could now see his own breath coming out in small white puffs in front of his face. His teeth were threatening to chatter. He clamped his jaw shut. 1:59 a.m. The sounds behind him had stopped. The bus felt full. Obinna could not explain how he knew this. He had not turned around. He had not counted. But he knew the way you know when you walk into a room and feel that it is crowded even before your eyes adjust to the light. This bus was full. The clock changed. 2 a.m., Obinna put the bus in gear. He pressed the accelerator. The bus moved forward. He drove carefully. The road was dark and slightly uneven, but he was a professional. 11 years. He knew how to handle a large vehicle on a bad road in the dark. He focused on the narrow cone of light from the headlamps. For the first few minutes, there was complete silence behind him. Perfect silence. The kind of silence that feels like a held breath. Obinna kept his eyes on the road. The old woman had been very clear. Do not speak. Do not stop the engine. He drove through the back road behind the stadium, past the junction, onto the long road that ran alongside the old railway tracks. He had driven this road before during the day, but at night, it looked entirely different. The trees on either side of the road seemed taller than he remembered. Their branches reached across the road, above the bus, and intertwined with each other, forming a long, dark tunnel of dead wood. No leaves, no birds. Just bare twisted branches, like the fingers of 100 hands clasped together overhead. Then the first sound came from behind him. It was not a word, not yet. It was a sound, a low hum, the way a person hums when they are lost in thought, except it was being hummed by many voices at the same time. Not in unison, but each in their own separate, wandering tone, all overlapping each other. It was one of the most unnatural sounds Obinna had ever heard, like the static of a broken radio playing a dozen different songs simultaneously. But each song was a dirge. His skin rose in goose flesh. He gripped the wheel tighter. He thought about the money under Chisom's pillow. He thought about Emeka's work registration. He thought about little Sochi singing in the church choir. He thought about baby Ngozi's chubby hands reaching up to grab his nose every morning when he came in to wake him. He kept driving. The humming slowly faded. Silence returned. Obinna exhaled. He checked the road ahead. He could see the next turn about 400 meters ahead. The long bend that would take him toward the old bridge. He had almost reached the bend when the first voice spoke. Driver. It was a man's voice, deep, calm, coming from somewhere in the middle of the bus. Driver, where are you taking us? Obinna said nothing. He drove. Driver. The voice again. Still calm, still patient. I am talking to you. It is rude to ignore a passenger. Answer me. Silence on both sides. Then another voice. A woman this time, from nearer the back, soft and thin like smoke. He cannot answer us, Emmanuel. Leave him. A pause. But he can hear us. He can hear everything. Something about the way she said that. He can hear everything. Turned the cold inside the bus several degrees colder. Obinna drove across the old bridge. Below it, the river was completely dry. Just cracked mud and dark stones. The bus light swept over it for a second as he crossed. And in that second, Obinna thought he saw something moving far low in the dry riverbed. He looked away. He focused on the road. My good people, I need to pause here for a moment, because what was happening in that bus is something that many of our people have experienced in one form or another. Maybe not so extreme, but the position of a man so desperate for money that he walks into danger with his eyes open. That is a position that poverty puts many of our brothers and sisters in every single day. That is why we must fight poverty. We must war against it in every way we can. With education, with hard work, with community, with prayer. Please share this video and tell us in the comment section which country you are watching from. Let us know you are there. The voices had been growing. What started as one man asking a question had multiplied. Now conversations were happening all over the bus. Men, women, children's voices. They spoke in Igbo, in Yoruba, in Hausa, in Pidgin English. But here was the terrifying thing about those conversations. They were not talking to each other. Every voice was talking about the same thing. Every single voice, in every different language, was saying different versions of the same sentence. Why won't he look at us? Tell the driver to turn around. Make him look back, just once. Obinna felt the sweat breaking out on his forehead, even though the bus was freezing cold. They wanted him to turn around. He did not know exactly what would happen if he did, but the old woman's warning rang in his memory with the clarity of a church bell. If the engine dies before the final stop, you will be trapped with them. He understood now. Turning around was not just breaking a rule. Turning around was the door they needed him to open. Turning around was how they would get to him. He pressed harder on the accelerator. The bus growled forward. Then something touched his seat. From behind. Something pressed gently but deliberately into the back of his seat. Right behind where his shoulder blades were. Not a punch, not a grab, just steady, quiet pressure. The pressure of someone leaning forward, very close to the back of his chair. A breath hit the back of his neck. It was not warm breath. It was freezing. It felt like someone had opened a bottle of cold air directly behind his ear and was breathing it onto his skin. Obinna. The voice that spoke his name was right beside his ear. Barely a whisper. How did it know his name? Obinna, I know you can hear me. Turn around. Just look at me. I have a message for you from someone who loves you. A message from someone who loves you. Those words hit Obinna somewhere deep and dangerous. His mind immediately went to Chisom, to his children. Don't, he told himself inside his head. It is a lie. It is a trick. Keep driving. Keep your eyes forward. But the voice did not stop. She said to tell you she forgave you. Before she went, she said to tell you she was not angry. Obinna's chest tightened. He did not know who this voice was pretending to be. He had not lost anyone recently. His parents were both still alive. His brothers and sisters were fine. He would not fall for it. He said nothing. He kept driving. The voice was silent for a moment. Then it tried again. And this time, the voice changed. It became the voice of a child. Daddy, exactly the voice of his 8-year-old daughter Sochi. Exactly. Not similar, not close. Exactly. Daddy, I followed you. I didn't want you to be alone. Obinna's foot nearly came off the accelerator. His whole body went rigid. That was Sochi's voice. His daughter's voice. The same voice that had mumbled in her sleep as he kissed her forehead. Before leaving the house, the same voice that sang in the church choir every Sunday morning. Daddy, why are these people so cold? I am scared. Can we go home? Obinna's eyes filled with tears. His hands were shaking on the wheel. His mind was fighting itself. The logical part screaming, it is not her. Sochi is in her bed. This is a trick. And the father part screaming back. But what if she followed me? What if she is really there? Daddy, turn around, look at me. I want to see your face, Daddy. The urge to look was like a physical rope tied around his neck, being pulled from behind. Obinna had never felt anything like it in his life. It was not just the wish to see. It was a compulsion. His neck muscles were fighting his brain. He began to pray. Silently, his lips moving with no sound. Every prayer his mother had taught him as a small boy in the village. Every verse he had memorized in Sunday school. He prayed them all back to back, like a man using words as armor. I know this is not my daughter. I know my daughter is safe at home. I reject every lie. I reject every trap. God, steady my hands. God, steady my eyes. The child's voice grew louder. It became desperate, crying, "Daddy, why won't you look at me? Daddy, don't you love me?" Tears were now streaming down Obinna's face. He was weeping and driving at the same time, his vision blurring, his breath ragged, but his eyes stayed forward. They did not move. Because Obinna was a father, and a father knows, truly knows, that love sometimes means you do not give your child what they are asking for. Sometimes love means you hold the line, even when it destroys you. He was holding the line. The child's voice stopped. Then all the voices stopped. The bus fell into silence so complete that Obinna could hear his own heartbeat. He wiped his face with the back of his hand, never releasing the wheel fully. He looked at the road. He had been so deep in the battle that he had not noticed. The road had changed. He was no longer on the main road. He was on a narrow dirt track he did not recognize. The trees here were different. They were shorter and their trunks were white. The pale silver white of bones that have been bleached by years in the sun. And along the side of the road, half hidden in the grass, were sisses. Obinna squinted. Tombstones, small, worn, unevenly spaced. Some standing upright, some leaning at angles, some broken. He had driven into a burial ground. Not a modern cemetery with neat rows and painted gates. This was an old place, an ancient place. The kind of burial ground that existed before the city existed, the kind of place where the very ground holds memory. Obinna now understood the whole truth. He understood it the way you understand something you never wanted to know. These were not late-night travelers going to the next town. These were not market traders or civil servants catching an early bus. He was driving the dead home. He was the ferryman of this city. The old woman had hired him to carry souls who were lost. Souls that had been wandering, unable to find rest, and bring them back to where they belonged, back to the earth. This was the job. This was the final destination. Obinna kept driving. The dirt track widened slightly. In the headlights ahead of him, he could now see the end of the path. A large flat clearing, ringed by the pale trunk trees, where dozens and dozens of old tombstones stood in crooked rows. This was the stop. He slowed the bus to a halt at the edge of the clearing. He did not turn off the engine. He remembered. Do not stop the engine. He put it in neutral and pressed the brake. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the sounds began. The same sounds he had heard when the passengers boarded. The soft creak of seats releasing weight. The quiet rustle of movement. And one by one, Obinna felt the cold lessening. Degree by degree, the temperature inside the bus began to rise toward normal. They were leaving. He did not look. He stared straight ahead through the windscreen at the clearing, at the pale tombstones in the headlights. And he counted the sounds: 18, 22, 27, 30, 33. The cold was almost entirely gone now. The bus felt lighter. The smell that had been filling his lungs, that indescribable smell of old earth and something deeper than earth, was fading. 36, 37, 38. Silence. Obinna waited. The bus was warm. The engine hummed. He was alone. He had done it. He had not spoken. He had not stopped the engine. He had not looked back. He survived. Obinna closes his eyes. 3 full seconds of peace. Then Obinna exhales of a man who just survived. Impossible. Barely a whisper. Thank you, God. Thank you. He opens his eyes, reaches for the gear stick, ready to go home to Chisom, to Sochi, to Emeka, to baby Ngozi. The passenger seat comes into frame. It is not empty. He had counted 38. There were 39. Obinna's hand frozen. On the gear stick, his eyes, slowly, beginning to move left. My people. Obinna survived the voices. He survived the cold. He survived the ghost that called itself his daughter. He delivered all 38 souls, and he did not break. But the one sitting beside him right now is not like the others. The others wanted to scare him. This one needs him. And what this passenger is about to ask Obinna will change his life forever. Not because it is frightening, but because it is the most human thing anyone, living or dead, has ever asked him. Who is the 39th passenger? Why did they stay? And why, out of every living person in this entire city, did they choose Obinna? Comment part 2 right now. Because what happens next is not a horror story anymore. It is something much more dangerous than horror. It is the truth.